everybody, as we start our chitas of the day. Today is the Wednesday, 4th day of the week, the 8th day of the month, and today we go to, we're in the middle of a portion of Vayigash. We're holding the 4th reading, which is on chapter 45, verse 28. Vayom Yisrael, and Israel said, that over here we're holding when his brothers come back and told him that Joseph is still alive. So Israel said, Rav oid Yosef b'ni chai. Enough, my son Joseph is still alive. Elcha ve'erena, I will go and see him b'terem amos, before I die. So Rashi says, Rav li oid simcha v'chedva, I have enough happiness and joy. Since my son Joseph is still alive, I'm so happy. I still have chance and time to enjoy life. Chapter 46, verse number 1. So Israel and all that he had traveled. They came to the city of Beersheba. And he slaughtered their sacrifice to the God of his father Isaac. Rashi says, Be'era Shava, the hay is at the end of the word, because in Hebrew, when you put the hay at the end of a word, it's like the hay in the beginning of the word. It means to, like the lam in the beginning of the word, it means to the city of Beersheba. So Rashi says, why does it say to the God of his father Isaac? One is required to honor his father more than is required to honor his grandfather. Therefore, he sacrificed are associated with Isaac, not with Abraham, because he has an obligation of kibud av ve'em, to honor his father. Verse number 2. And God said to Israel, B'mad halayla, in a vision at night. Yaakov, he said, Jacob, Jacob, Vayomer, and Jacob responded, Hineni, here am I. So Rashi says, why does it say twice Jacob? Didn't know his name. Now she says an expression of chiba, of an affection, when you say Jacob, Jacob. So God said to him, verse number 3, I am God, the God of your father. Altira, do not be afraid, from going down to Egypt, because I'll make you there into a great nation. So Rashi says, why did God have to tell him this? Because he was actually very troubled that he was leaving the Holy Land of Israel, to go to Mitzrayim. He was not happy about it per se, and therefore God told him, don't worry. I am going down there with you. Verse 4. I am going to bring you out of there. And Joseph will place his hand on your eyes. So that says, I'm going to take you up. So here God promised him that he would not be buried in the land of Egypt, but he would be buried in Eretz Israel. Verse number 5. Yaakov, and the children of Israel carried Jacob their father, Vestapam, and all their children, Venashem, and their wives, Ba'agolis, in the wagons, Hashashalach Pari, which Pari sent Losis Oisoi to carry him. Verse number 6. They took all their livestock, which they acquired in the land of Canaan, and Jacob and all his descendants came down to Mitzrayim. So Rashi says, what is the meaning what they got in Canaan? But what happened, they had acquired in Padan Aram, he gave everything to Esav in payment for his share in the cave of Machpelah. He paid ultimately for it. Esav was bothered that he acquired the part in the cave, so he gave it to him all the money. He gave him all the money he acquired by his father-in-law. He gave it all away to Esav. He said, possessions outside the land of Israel are inappropriate for me. Take it all. This is the meaning which I acquired myself with heap. with heaps. He placed before him stacks of gold and silver like heaps of grain, and said to him, take these. First, Esav did not want to take it, but ultimately the Torah says that Esav took. So Yaakov Avinu got rid of all his possessions that he required by his father-in-law, his 22 years of work. He gave it all to Esav. And now he acquired a new whole life in Eretz Yisrael. Verse number 7. Banov u'bnei banav Itai, his sons and his sons' sons, b'neisov, b'neis banav, his daughters and his daughters, the sons of his daughters, Chol Zarei, Hevi Oit Mitzrayim, and all his descendants he brought to him to Egypt. So who is b'neis banav, the daughters of his sons? Serach bash Asher, Sarah bash Asher. The Torah wants to accentuate two of those girls. Sarah bash Asher, that lived for ever, according to the Torah. She never died. She was going to live forever. And Yecheved bas Levi, the Yecheved, the daughter of Levi, which was going to be the mother of Moses. And she was born, as it's told, as she came down to the land of Egypt. Two very special women. And now we go to the Tanya of the day. We are holding in chapter 8 of Tanya. And the Alter Rebbe is talking about negative things that a person does, and what's the ramification of these negative things. So we spoke about prohibited food. We spoke about, God forbid, prohibited a relationship, God forbid, or just a omission out of a relationship. Well, dvarim b'teilim beheter. Now the Alter Rebbe goes in innocent, idle chatter. For example, ignoramus people who cannot learn, and therefore what do? They sit and they just chatter. And nothing. We're not talking about talking lashon hara. That's a prohibition. We're talking about the stam talking narishkeit. So that's also impure. He must have his soul cleansed from the impurity of this klippa. This is a covering, idle chatter. Al de gilgul b'kafakele. If he doesn't do tshuva, then he has what's called the hollow sling. So the punishment in the bottom here, the punishment is described as being slung from one end of the world to the other, or from Israel to the other lands. The meaning is that the soul is flung from one extreme to the other. First is shown the truth and the preciousness of holiness, and then it's slung into and reminds of the thoughts and words and experience, while in the physical world, a most painful experience for the soul. And that's one of the what the Zohar writes, as it stated in the Zohar in Parashat B'Shara. So this is one of the punishments of the soul. So just like he sat and spoke idle chatter, narishkeit, we're intellectual people who do very important things. Then we just stop talk stupidity and nothingness. So this is the concept. We are showing a moment of what the greatness of the soul is. The soul is shown that, and then it's flung into narishkeit, and backwards and forwards. It's a very painful thing. So that's part of the rectification of the soul. With regard to forbidden speech, such as scoffing and slander, and the like, which when a person talks evil talk, when a person talks these kind of talk, that is totally unclean. It's not like it's just idle talk, stupid talk. This is evil talk. The hollow sling alone does not suffice to cleanse and remove the impurity of his soul. Therefore, this soul must go into Gehenna, purgatory. He must go into the fire, so to say, which is the aspect of a fire which cleanses his soul. It's also cleansing. Hollow sling the hollow sling alone cannot effectively scour and cleanse his soul. But he must receive severe penalties, which are meted out for neglect of Torah in particular. Apart from the general retribution for the neglect of the positive commandments through machmas atzos, because of laziness. That's a purgatory in snow, as explained elsewhere. So there's a concept of the, as I said, the purgatory Gehenim, over here in the explanation, where the soul is cleansed of the stains of the sins, so that it may enter paradise to enjoy the radiance of God's glory, operates on a principle of measure for measure, punishment in kind. Thus, sins commission caused by heat of passion and lust are cleansed by Gehenim of heat, while sins, omissions due to indolence and coolness, indifference, like lack of fervor, are cleansed in the Gehenim of snow. It's cold. So that's the two Gehenims. It's indifference, a Gehenim of indifference is the Gehenim of cold. Imagine you'll be in Gan Eden. Really, Gehenim is part of Gan Eden. You can Kabbalah, you can be two people can be in the same place. One is in Gan Eden, one is in Gehenim. One is he's in paradise, and the other one's in Gehenim. Why? Because the souls will be indifferent to him. So imagine you're sitting in Gan Eden and everybody's indifferent, they're all cold to you, and that is the punishment to the soul. So if you embarrass somebody in this world, you'll be embarrassed in the upper world. That's a punishment to the soul. But ultimately, it's something good because ultimately it's all a rectification for the neshama. The neshama will have its ultimate paradise. So it's a cleansing process. It's all good. It's all for the good of the neshama. We're not here Torah is not here trying to put a person into pain and suffering without any positive. So ultimate part, that's why we only say Kaddish for 11 months, because we say the ultimate amount of the soul can be in Gehenim is 11 months. But after 11 months, every soul goes into Gan Eden and finds its true place in paradise. And by saying Kaddish for the soul, that gives the soul its elevation, even if his soul is stuck in that kind of Gehenim. This pushes him out of that. So we all try for the soul to get there quicker because we don't want the pain of the soul. And that's also what the expression is. And we're taught that all pain in this world is to have so the soul won't have pain in the upper world. Because any pain in this world is nothing to the pain of the true pain of the soul in the world to come after 120 years. Moreover, the impurity of the intellectual disciplines of the nations, learning, putting ourselves into the hands of the intellectual concept of the nations of the world. It's even worse than idle speech because it's intellectual. You say, oh, we're learning great intellect, great science, and great things. We're learning from the nations of the world. Everything's in the Torah. You don't have to learn nothing. How did the sages know science? How did the sages know mathematics? How did the sages know all these things? They knew it from the Torah. They didn't have to go to the nations of the world to teach them Torah. They knew everything from the Torah. But we go and we say, no, the Torah doesn't have these things. I got to go someplace else. I need to learn this from someplace else. That's a great effect on our soul. Worse than idle talk. For the latter closes and defiles only the emotions which emanates from the holy elements of Ruach, which is in the divine soul. Then when I talk idle talk, okay, so I talk idle talk, a waste of talk. I only affect my emotions with tumas klippas negas. You want to tell them by tainting them with impure klippas nega contained in the idle speech, which is derived from the evil element of ruach ear, which is in the components of this klippa of this animal soul, as mentioned above. What happens when I go into the intellectual bodies of the nations of the world, intellect of the nations of the world? Oh, there I affect my chachma. But when I talk idle talk, I'm not affecting my Chabad, I know this idle talk. Everybody knows this stupid talk, wasteful talk. Us having a good time, just talking narishkeit. No gain, no loss. We can talk hours and hours, and nothing is gained, nothing is lost. It's just waste time. I know it's stupid talk, and I'm not affecting my intellect. I'm not affecting my wisdom, my understanding, and knowledge in my idle talk. I know that it's idle. The words of foolishness and ignorance. Even stupid people could talk idle talk. Not so is the case of the science of the nations. One closes and defiles his divine soul's faculty of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding with the impurities of klippas nega contained within these sciences. So they're still not totally evil, but the klippas nega realize that if they don't come from the Torah, these knowledges, that ultimately klippa Torah, I gotta rectify it. I gotta refine it. Where the sciences have fallen through the shattering of the vessels, out of the hinder part of Chachma, of wisdom, the holiness, as is known in the students of Kabbalah. Thus the study, look in the interpretation, thus the study of these sciences contaminates the intellectual faculty of the godly soul, and is therefore much worse than idle speech, which contaminates only the emotional faculties. Unless here we have the Alter Rebbe gives you the leeway out in this concept, and this is important. Unless one employs them, these scientists, as a useful instrument to make a living, to be able to support himself. So therefore you should, if you're using it out, these old knowledge that the nations of the world will give you, for the sake, not because you're interested that, it's a great knowledge, it's an unbelievable knowledge. No, it's a knowledge that I need to make a living. Then it's a different thing, because then I'm using out the knowledge to make a living, and now I can serve the Eibishter better, because Baruch Hashem, I have a living. Or you know how to take this knowledge and use it out itself. If I know how to take the knowledge itself and use out the knowledge itself for the service of God, that's even better. And as the Alter Rebbe continues, that time Rambam, and that's why Maimonides, Ramban, and Nachmanides, they were astronomers and mathematicians, and they knew the knowledges of the nations of the world. They knew it very clear because they used it all out for the service of the Eibishter. They used it out, that knowledge itself, for the service of God. And the peers who engaged in them. So here, the Alter Rebbe gives us tells us that the essence. That's why it says the expression, really, everything is in the Torah. Everything is in the Torah. Every knowledge is in the Torah. Everything I can find in the Torah. But we need to make a living, and we need to go and learn the ways of the world and the teachings of the world to be able to make a living. Why do we need to make a living? So be able to serve God better. We make a living, we'll be able to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore we need to use out the knowledge of the world, but not for the knowledge of the world for its sake. There's no need for it. As a Jew, I can live with the knowledge of the Torah itself, and I would be able to, for my neshama, my nefesh l'kis, I would have enough for my whole lifetime. And that completes the Tanya of the day. And we are now going to go. I'm just going to tell you what is narishkeit, not nothingness. I think narishkeit, that you're talking about, that's a Yiddish expression of nothingness. We are the Tillim of the day. Today is the 8th day of Teves, which is chapter 44, 45, 46, 47. 44, 45, 46, and 47. And you would have done the Tillim of the day. Tonight at 7:30, we're going to have the class, that the JLI class, which is called Secrets of the Bible, the last class of this course. It's a phenomenal, truly a phenomenal class. Everybody's welcome to come at 7:30, either social distancing at the Chabad or on this Zoom, and you're going to have an unbelievable lesson according to the teachings of Chassidus, the story behind the Torah story, the secret of the story, the argument between Moses and Korach, the first real political argument in the Torah, and what the real argument was. Have a beautiful, wonderful, happy, and healthy day.